All right, here we are back again for another wonderful episode of Backpacking America. Thank you again to everyone out there. I'd like to once again give another shout out to my boy Nate Cleaning. My boy Nate has been working his butt off trying to clean everyone's house, giving everyone the best clean possible, disinfecting their house, teaching them about how to disinfect and maintain their house after the fact. He does really great work. If you want to learn more about Nate, check out episode 158, where I bring him on for over an hour and a half to discuss the various ways you can clean your house, take care of yourself, and use the proper cleaning solutions that will be better for your health and the longevity of your home. So today, what we're going to be talking about is kill switches in cars. So in the new infrastructure bill that passed, which I'm going to say this right now, I am so for infrastructure. I get hard off of trains. I love trains and buses and planes and all that shit. But I'm going to be very honest with you. I am so fed up with the pork that gets stuffed in federal bills. And that is unfortunately the sad part about every good bill that's ever been brought to the floor of Congress, is that they stuff a bunch of crap in it that doesn't even need to be there. So let's discuss what this means, right? So basically, I don't know if you guys could. Sorry, I have to mute a chat really quick. Mute notifications. Okay, so basically, there's a now I completely lost my train of thought. There's a clause or a law that was put into that bill, and it doesn't take effect for 5 years, so there is time to reverse it. But basically, all new cars would have to have kill switches in them, and these kill switches would be designed to ensure that people that are impaired drivers would have their vehicles shut off and they would not be able to drive anymore. This, in theory, would protect sober drivers on the road and the drunk driver in question. But here's where it gets tricky. It passively monitors you. So there's an AI in the car that passively monitors how you drive, and this will shut your car off if it feels that you're intoxicated. Here's where it gets really scary. And this is from, all my angles here from the socialist perspective. This is going to disproportionately affect working people in insane capacity. People in this country frequently work 10 to 14-hour shifts. Tiredness, drowsy driving is actually comparable to drunk driving in vehicle patterns and maneuvers. So people are essentially going to be driving tired and be considered driving drunk. Now, what does this mean if this happens? So basically, the car shuts off. I don't know if you'll have time. It's not clarified if you'll have time to pull over to the side of the road, if it just slowly starts to decelerate, which I think it will. That could be very scary. Does it give you a warning that's going to shut off in 60 seconds? And then what's the cool down time? Can you restart your car? There's a lot of variables here, and the biggest variable is, does it call the police immediately? That's another thing too. That's a scary thing. So you now have a system in this car that can shut your car off, and you could be in a bad neighborhood. You could be in inclement weather where, you're in torrential downpour, or a hurricane's coming and you get that pre-hurricane storm. You could be just missing a snow blizzard. There's so many variables that determine, driving and how you're driving to avoid a greater danger, that the car could consider, oh, this person's intoxicated, they can't drive. It's not taking situational awareness into account. So this thing could just shut off. And then there's also malfunctions, so you could be stranded even when you're sober and not tired. Now here's the thing. Here's what really scares me, is that you could be stranded if you're tired, and then you have the cops called on you, and then the cops have to check you out, and then they have to make sure that there's no drugs in the vehicle, and then if you get a dirty cop, they might plant drugs or a gun in your car, and it's just going to open you up to potential, bad things happening. There's no need for that interaction to happen. So why does it have to happen? Is basically the whole thing. So the cops can get called potentially with this thing, and they're open. They're easily accessible from hackers. We get cyber attacks all the time against this country from China, Russia, some of our allies even, it's been found. I think France did something a few years back. Why wouldn't they attack our cars? We have all these terrorist groups out in the Middle East and domestically. Don't you think that would be amazing to just hack into a vehicle, into all the vehicles in let's say the tri-state area or the metro area of New York City, and then just shut them down, and then you stop the flow of goods and services? That's a massive economic attack. You don't even have to build a bomb. You could just shut down cars. God forbid there's an EMP attack, forget it. Or if we go to war with, another country, they could shut down the whole country's trucking and automotive industry. Every industry that requires a car or a vehicle is gone. And that's it. There's no flow of goods and services anymore. We're back riding horses. That's going to drive prices up. There's a lot of bad things that could happen from this, and there's also concerns. Some people say, okay, Anthony, you're freaking out. This is not a tyranny thing. This is a safety thing. This is going to prevent drunk drivers from driving irresponsibly. This is going to stop people that could have killed someone from killing someone because their car will be diverted off the road. It'll put those in jail that deserve to be in jail. It will. It's a preventative measure. Ew, that's disgusting. Sorry, guys. I still have COVID cough. It's really bad. Preventative measure. It's a preventative. There's nothing wrong with this. I could see nothing wrong with this. We should think that this is just another cool gadget. And you're so concerned about tyranny. Well, your phone already tracks you. Yeah. Okay. But why do we need our cars to track everything now? This is much different than a phone too. I can take this phone that I have here, featured the OG Backpacking America sticker, by the way. This phone that I have here, I don't need this phone. I can get rid of this and get a burner phone and do all of my business off of there. Instagram lets me do everything on the desktop now, on the computer. I don't need a phone for social media anymore. I really don't. So I could get rid of this. But I need a car. And most Americans need a car to get around, unless you live in a big city with excellent public transit. But that's not every American. So, you need a car. And that's literally putting the state in the car. Like, it's to the point where there's so much control over how now you drive. And like I said before, this is a major concern for people that work weird hours, or like they're drowsy and they need to get out there. You know what I mean? Like, I can't really... I really can't see any reason why this would be a good thing. And a lot of it comes from I don't drunk drive. And that's good. Like, a lot of people don't. But what's considered drunk is going to be determined by a computer with no situational awareness. And that's going to put a rush on the used car market, where used cars are going to quadruple in value because no one wants to deal with that. And then we're going to have, people that are going to be hacking into these things to disable them, and doing the same thing with the people that hack with the breathalyzers, the breathalyzer start cars. They're going to do the same thing with this. It's just, that's just going to be how it is. And the people that are dumb enough to buy these cars are really opening themselves up to a world of trouble. Because think of it like this too, right? Like, say you go to a Black Lives Matter protest, or you go to a Stop the Steal rally, right? And you come home and you're listed as one of the people that is at this rally, and the government obviously wants both of those movements to go away. So, like, what if they just stopped your car at a very inconvenient time? Or what if they, shut your car off at a very, very, opportune spot for a police officer to to come up to you, plant something on you, and then take you to jail? Or say you were drunk and that you blew a .08 or higher, and they arrest you. There's a lot of law enforcement fuckery that could occur with this. This could be used as another tool of political suppression. So if you're in the Black Lives Matter movement, or you're in the Stop the Steal, Make America Great type of thing, both sides of this could get equally attacked. There's no positive benefit from this. This could be used as a tool of political suppression. It could be used also for people that are afraid of, the vaccine mandates, right? Like, this could be used as a way to be like, oh, like, you didn't get a vaccine pass? Well, we're not going to turn your car on. And the companies can do that. The private companies have access over how their car runs now. You know what I'm saying? So this is a software that could be uploaded with commands to trigger a shutoff of your engine, essentially. So right now the trigger is impaired driving, but tomorrow it could be, do you have your vaccine? Or it could be, oh, there's a rise in cases. Everyone's car can't start for the next 2 weeks because we need to keep the numbers down. So, yeah, we're going to shut your cars off. Or you're only allowed to drive your car at the approved travel time and route to your job. And that's the only time you could drive, to use your car to drive, is to and from work. Or they could use it for martial law purposes, where it's like, oh, you can't drive your car because there's a martial law alert, like everyone has to stay in their house. You can't be on the streets, you can't be driving. It literally prevents people, it denies you movement. We're essentially creating feudalism again. And then on top of that, it's already bad enough that most people don't own their vehicles, their new vehicles to begin with. They have to pay payments. They don't actually own their car. Their car is not an asset. Their car is a rental. Essentially, you're leasing a vehicle, or you're paying it off, and then you finally get it, and then it depreciated in value so much that you have to sell it for $3,000 to $5,000 when you paid $50,000 or $40,000 for it. So there's literally like we don't really own a lot of stuff anymore. Everything is now lease and rent, which is what it was in the feudalism time. So we're essentially recreating feudalism, and now we're giving the government so much control over how we move that it's actually terrifying. So I titled this episode, what did I call this? I called this episode I have to see what I called it, because this thing's gonna start messing with me, isn't it? Pause. What are you? Where are you? Kill switches in cars, safety or tyranny. So, is it a safety measure or is it a tyrannical measure? So the people that would be in favor of this will say, well, it'll curb drunk driving, it'll curb drugged driving, accidents will go down, people will think twice before getting behind the wheel, maybe it'll encourage safer driving habits, That's all I can really see on that. The tyrannical side of it, I could see way more argument for against it. And this is what's going to irritate me, is that there's a lot of things that are wrong in this country. And more or less it is the fault of the government and the business class. But the left is not going to talk about this issue because it doesn't have to deal with social justice, economic reform. It's an other issue. It's not cultural, it's just an other issue that the right is going to take over. The right wing takes over all these specific issues. So they'll definitely take over this issue. They'll take over the critical race theory thing. They'll take over the mask thing. They'll take over the the gender stuff, not the gender stuff, but they'll take over like the there's two genders thing. They'll take over the red light cameras. They'll take over taxes. They'll take over those things that people actually, not that people don't talk about the economic and the social justice aspects of things, but like if you want, if say this kill switch thing really resonates with you, I guarantee you that only the right wing is really going to talk about it. The left wing won't really talk about it. And then you're going to be like, all right, well, they're talking about something that actually directly it could impact me because this is going to be made mandatory and I'm going to buy a car within 5 to 10 years. But I also like social justice and civil rights. Now I have to pick between the two. The left needs to actually encompass some of these other issues. And I think that issue of remote, these kill switches is definitely a labor issue too. Think of it like this. Think of it like you're a striking worker, right? And you're driving to the picket line. What if the company that you're striking and you're walking the picket line on works with the automobile company and gives that automobile company all the plates of cars that have, say there's all the striking workers have Toyota, Ford, and Cadillac. And then those companies will be like, okay, here's their license plates, let's shut them off. Boom. And then they get shut off. They don't need a warrant for that. These are private companies. And I don't think you have like a reasonable protection to privacy yet. The thing is that this is all very new. Like, oh, you're shutting off my car. Is there legal protection for that? These are going to be new cases. They're going to have to be tried. So they're going to obviously test the waters with it and abuse it. So now these striking workers can't go to the picket line because their vehicles were turned off by the company. So the kill switch, which starts out as a normal, with the best intentions in mind, could quickly spiral out into this tyrannical alternative. And we see this even with the pandemic. I mean, I got 3 shots. I got my 3 shots. I had COVID. I stayed 10 days in my house instead of the 5. The 5, at home, and then the 5 with the mask in public. Like, I didn't do that. I don't believe in that. That's just an attempt to get people to go to work and prevent a labor shortage. That's what this is. But to say what I was going to say, sorry, these group chats are just insane. What I was going to say was that there's like with the mask thing, before the vaccines, it made a lot of sense. But now it's almost like a cultural thing, and it's politicized to the point where it's like, oh, you're not wearing your mask, you're a piece of garbage. Or you're wearing a mask, you're a pussy. And it's to the point where it's used as almost another way to divide Americans instead of like, hey, listen, this is a public health measure and that's really it. With Omicron, the surgical mask and the fabric mask doesn't really work. You have to be just fully vaccinated with the booster, for a while, and just kind of making sure you're not in high density areas and you won't get it. I was fully vaccinated and I was in a gym and I got it. Fortunately, my parents didn't get it. It's just kind of like it's tyrannical in the sense because like now they're firing people for their jobs for not getting a vaccine. That's questionable because it's like the messaging is like all over the place with it now. It's kind of like it was a cure and now it's not a cure. And then there's then Merriam-Webster changed the definition of what a vaccine was. So that's a little scary. Now we're changing the definition of things. There's no actual scientific rigor. There's no, hey, we messed up. This actually isn't a cure. It's just kind of like a flu shot where it's like the likelihood of it cutting down severe illness is going to be factored in, but you can still get this, and you probably will. I have unvaccinated friends that got it, the Omicron, and they recovered sooner than my vaccinated friends and myself. And then there's vaccinated people I know that were asymptomatic, or they had very mild symptoms, and then they recovered and they're fine and they don't have long-lasting symptoms. There's vaccinated people I know that have, like myself, I have a lingering cough. I don't know about my heart stuff. Sometimes I feel like I have palpitations, but like I have a heart oximeter, and I'm just like, okay, like I'm fine. So I guess I'm good. There's a lot of confusion over that, and it's to the point where it's like, if you don't toe the line on X or Y, like if you're a Republican and you're not fully anti-COVID, then you're bad. And if you're a liberal and you're not super pro-COVID and you're triple masking and throating Fauci, then like you're also bad. It's a lot of division, and the division in itself is tyranny, because we can't actually stand up against issues and demand respect and vengeance, really, for the 1 million Americans that died while senators traded stocks and benefited, and companies became triple as rich from this. That's the tyranny in this. Or, you know, they'll say, wear a mask. You can't, you know, you need to wear a mask. You need a quarantine, but they'll never provide us a mask. Or, we need the economy to keep going. You need to go to work, but you can't hang out with your friends and go to a bar. But we can go party in Miami. And I'm talking to AOC over there. You know, it's just this stupidity and this double standard stuff, where it's kind of like everyone's like the thought police, but it's typical American extravagance. We have two forms of thought police. We have the Republican and the Democratic thought police. You know, the Republican will be like, why are you wearing a mask? That's stupid. Why are you getting a vaccine? Vaccines are bad. And then you'll have the opposite, where the liberals like, why aren't you wearing a mask? Why aren't you getting a vaccine? Why are you going outside? But then the hypocrisy is that they can go do that because they know what's best for society. And the rest of the people that aren't politically or pandemically motivated or aware are idiots, and they need to be told what to do by me because I did my research for 20 minutes on Facebook and I shared the right Democratic or Republican Party, you know, viewpoint. All of this is tyrannical. And what started, you know, with the quarantines, the mask, and the vaccine, what started as a good thing, ended up spiraling out of control to now where we're even more divided. We're even further divided. And now it's seen people wear masks more as a political thing to show that they believe in the science rather than actually protecting themselves, you know, or they'll get the vaccine because they want to be on the right side of history, not because they actually believe it works. So it's just kind of like a lot of this partisanship, and that furthers into the tyrannical end of it, because whoever wins out of this, you're gonna get their radicality out of it. You know, and to bring it back to the car thing, you know, like I said, like all that stuff with COVID, it's the same thing with this car. You know, it started out as a really good measure. Everyone was kind of afraid of like the negative impact of drunk driving or the coronavirus pandemic, so we sought ways to prevent it, and now it's going to get out of control. So, this is a very radical time in the country, and my fear with the pandemic when it first even happened was people just blindly trusting the government. Like, obviously, like, vaccines, you know, they are effective. There is less death with this variant. I knew my chance of dying was a lot less with the vaccine, and getting a after effect would probably be a lot less. I've always done bad with colds, so I figured, okay, you know, if I get the vaccine, I'll be a little safer. But people that just took the COVID pill and were just so far to the either extreme, you know, like extreme distrust where they ended up trusting the government, like they ended up trusting Trump. It's the same thing kind of like with this car thing. Like, oh, well, you know, they're not going to just shut down the cars in the middle of the road, and there's not going to be any widespread negative usage of this. I can't see this being used in a negative way by the government or the corporations. Think of it like this, too. They throttle your iPhone. Apple literally throttles your iPhone when it needs an update. Samsung does the same thing, you know. Planned obsolescence. That's going to be enforced with these cars. They know cars can go for 10 years, 20 years. If you keep a car for 10 years or 20 years, that means they're not getting a paycheck for 10 or 20 years. That's why all this leased stuff comes out, like Sirius XM packages and lease your vehicle now. So they always have money coming in. If they have this power to just make your car not work through an AI that they can update at any time, and it's open sourced, they can shut your car off in a year. You might have to buy a car every year or every 2 years. You understand what I'm saying? That planned obsolescence is a big deal. All right, I'm back. I had to blow my nose. That planned obsolescence is a big deal. There's so much more negative with this. Like, if you want to curb drunk driving, you have to improve the living standards of people, because if they're drunk driving, they're not just going to a party and they got a little too drunk and then they came home. Like, they're drunk. Like, they're just getting hammered at work or at school or at, like, home. And then they're going out to drive and just do stuff. Most people that drunk drive are like that. Some of them go out to the bar to get wasted, but, like, why are they doing that, too? Like, is that all they do? Did they just have a bad night and they just got too drunk and they were just like, I can make it home, and they weren't able to? Or is this like a frequent habit that they're doing? Are most drunk drivers frequent drunk drivers? And do they have a history of alcoholism and heavy drinking? Like, why do they have that? Resolving these social issues will prevent the need of doing these authoritarian things. For example, in China, they didn't need to make a mask mandate or a vaccine mandate to get people to wear masks and vaccinate. They saw what happened with SARS and MERS. They said, okay, we can't risk this again. If you're sick, just wear a mask. It's the right thing to do. And they just did. And there's no conspiracy theories, because the government generally works out for them. They feel over in China that they're taken care of. So I don't really need to conspire against the government or distrust them, because why would they inject a microchip in my body? They have a smartphone and there's CCTV cameras everywhere. Like, what? Doesn't make sense. Here it's different. Here we never trusted our government from the beginning. We never trusted our government. So naturally we have conspiracy theorists, and naturally we have disdain for the government and authority. And it's a very individualistic country. So when you have a mandate in place, it's to make up for the fact that that cultural collectivity is not there. Therefore, we need a vaccine mandate, whereas other countries will just get the vaccine, and there's no need for a mandate because everyone just does it. Or a mask mandate because everyone just wears a mask when they're told to. But in Western countries, we're not as collectivist. And we'll fight it. You'll see the same thing going on in France and Belgium and in Germany as is going on in the United States with resistance to vaccine and resistance to masks. Because in Western liberal democracies, culturally, a restraint on the individual is a restraint on society as a whole, and that is bad. That must be fought. So that's why we have all these issues in America. It's mostly just because of our culture. And I'm not, in that regard, it needs to change a little bit, because you got your polio shots, you got your pox shots, you got your HPV shots. You got some people, they got like the triple vaccine when they were a kid, mumps, measles, rubella, MMRs. And there was a whole thing like, oh, it's going to cause autism. It never caused autism. It did not. That study was fake and falsified. The thing is too, like, I'll see people. Well, basically, I'm sorry, I'm going off so much on COVID, but basically, there's a lot of parallels where there's going to be excuses to uphold a way of thinking and a way of thought, and then it completely devolves and is actually the complete opposite. So in the name of safety, we get tyranny in a lot of respects. When it comes to these cars, we're going to get, like I said, planned obsolescence. We could see political enemies of the state getting attacked. We could see people getting, disappeared easier. If you're in a cartel and you want to put a hit on someone, if you're like an MS-13 or whatever, you could hack into that and kill someone. If you're like tech savvy high schooler and you want to do a mass shooting, I'm sure you could do something with that. Disable police vehicles or something crazy. It's just, there's a lot of terrible things that I could just think of is some jackass with a microphone. God forbid someone with actual bad intentions saw this come to fruition and was like, oh, I know how to do this. There's so many national security risks with this. It's not worth it. Not everything has to be digitized. So many things in this country are digitized to the point where it's just like it alienates everyone from everything. Like, you cannot physically, we don't own anything. I don't own any of the music on my phone. Our cars are leased unless you have like a used one. We own the clothes on our back. Our apartments are rented. Our houses are mortgaged. The banks own the house. Your technology is most likely paid on like payment plans. No one owns anything anymore. No one owns anything, and that's scary. Like, we literally don't even have like means. We just have consume mindlessly, throw money at shit, and just throw money at shit. Like, I have Adobe Audition, like the Adobe suite, because I'm a media guy. Like, I edit shit and I produce shit, and I don't own those programs. Back in the day, I would buy a program and it would be mine for the rest of my life. And I'd either buy an update, it would just get sent to me, or I'd have to buy a new program that was updated. The fact I have to rent a program that I have to use for work and for my own personal projects is ridiculousness. It's ridiculousness. So we don't even own these things. So we're getting policed on something we don't even own now, on vehicles, these new vehicles. They're so expensive. They're $50,000, $40,000. There's so much stuff in it that the price of a car is even going to increase now. Now that it's a federal bill, they're not going to be gracious and waive it or have you write it off or whatever as a tax refund. They're straight up just going to be like, yeah, $45,000. Now it's $55,000 because the AI and federal government and blah, blah, blah. So now cars are going to be even more expensive. So now working people can't even get cars. So I think I've basically covered my bases. It's going to be harder to get a car. It's going to drive up the price of used cars. So now you're going to get scalped when you want to get a decent car that you could get on the side of the road for $2,000. Now it's $20,000. The government could kill you. Gangs could kill you. People could kill you. You could get stranded for no reason and get harmed that way. You could get shot. You could get pulled over on the side of the road for drunk driving, even though you're drowsy. The police could use it to try and intimidate you so you don't go to rallies or to union meetings. There's so many bad things that could happen with this. Overall, it's a total bad deal. Call your senator and your House representative to oppose this addendum, this pork in this bill. It is not valid. Please, because this insanity has to stop. There's too much crazy stuff going on in our country that just gets to fly by the wayside. This is the one thing we have to stand on, because they're literally going to start messing with your freedom of movement. And that's all I got today, guys. Thanks again for listening to the show. Once again, all the socials are on this beautiful little mountain range I got here for all my visual viewers. For everyone else, the Instagram is Backpacking America. The Facebook is Backpacking America. The email is Backpacking America. Podcasting@gmail.com. The YouTube is Backpacking America. The Twitter is BPA Podcasting. And the Twitch is Backpacking America. Pretty simple stuff. I'd also like to shout out my Threadless account. It's in my link tree on Instagram. Click that link. It's also in the bio for all my Spotify, Google Podcasts, and audio-only listeners as well. And it's also in the description for my video viewers. It's a Threadless shop. You could buy all your BPA merch there: sweaters, hoodies, tank tops, backpacks, which is pretty cool. Backpacking America backpack, stickers, mugs, shirts, you name it, skateboards even. I got everything. I want to thank you guys again for listening to this, and until next time, my friends.